You're listening to Cinema Rex. It's an Iranian film podcast. Hi, this is episode 62, Mohsen Makhmalbaf's Gabbeh.
Or Gabbeh.
This is the film that I think inspired Yo Gabba Gabba to start
That tracks.
show or whatever. It was a show, not a band. I thought it was a kid's song.
That timeline tracks.
Durud Bashoma Dustan Aziz. This is the Cinema Rex podcast where we talk all things Iranian film, cinema, art, rugs, carpets, Gabbeh carpets, poetry, music, landscapes,
Canaries.
blue
hand-eye.
hand-eye coordination. I'm Gabbeh Mohebi.
And I'm Farhan Moradi.
And I'm Gabbeh Mohebi.
Still?
No guest today. Let's just kick back and put our feet up. Kick your feet up right now. Do it.
But my feet are cold.
Higher.
I need to sit on them. There you go. They're up.
We haven't had a guest for a non-Hollywood hit job episode in a while, I feel. Have we? When was our last Rod for Children of Heaven?
Yeah.
5
And before
episodes
that,
ago.
Cena for Agitation. And who came on for the night? Was that Dara? Yeah, that was Dara.
Yes. And I came on for the day.
Nice.
And today I'm here to talk to you about a film that I wasn't sure you'd be able to see in time because you've been traveling the world.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
I said enough about you. You were going to start
traveling.
complaining. This is Farhan's complaint corner. Go on. You get one complaint.
Do-do-do-do.
You get one complaint. What do you want to complain about? You've been traveling a lot. Go.
I'm tired. That's it.
That's not a complaint. That's just a state of emotion
Yeah, well.
or physical wellness.
I don't like being tired. It's coarse, it's rough, and it gets everywhere.
Oh, man. I knew I shouldn't have taken you on as my apprentice. I'm Gabbeh Mohebi.
And I'm still Farhan Moradi.
I'm really interested to know your thoughts about today's film. We are, of course, discussing Mohsen Makhmalbaf's 1996. Would you say this is like a hit? I guess it was quite the hit. Well, the film is called Gabbeh. Gabbeh.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the deep J? It's not Gabbeh with the deep J.
No, I think
right?
it's just a Gabbeh.
Yeah. I have one note I want to tell you right off the top that I deliberately saved telling you.
Tell me.
Before we get into plot summary and everything, this film centers thematically and as a motif around this Gabbeh carpet, which, to those who don't know, are very uniquely different carpets compared to the typical, what is considered Persian carpets that most people see in film and cinema and art, and quite often in a lot of Iranian people's homes or even non-Iranian homes, in that they're designed, they're actually quite thicker usually. Mm-hmm. The process of it could be made differently depending on, I'll get into some of the specifics and behind the scenes trivia, but also they're uniquely woven in a sort of texture that they're not usually this like repeating pattern that you might see in Persian carpets. They're quite picturesque or portrait-esque in a lot of their styles, would you not say?
Yeah, definitely.
And my favorite carpet that I have in my home that I got from my parents is a Gabbeh carpet in the basement, which you've seen. And it's the very one in this film. And I never knew that.
What?
It's the film. Yeah, I have this carpet.
It looked very familiar seeing it in the movie, and I couldn't figure out why. Next time I come to your house, I'm going to have to pay attention.
I had an existential crisis, not an existential crisis, but I had like this weird cultural existential crisis of like, do I have like, is this just like, did the film make this type of carpet like the most sold style of carpet? You know, is this,
right?
It's not a one for one. I'm sure they made dozens of this print, but I just didn't know at that point, like how popular is this rug? Because I've never seen it anywhere else before, but it was just kind of cool at the end. They show the carpet throughout the film, but one of the final shots is just revealing the carpet in all its glory. And
is it the same color?
Everything's the same. There's a slight gradient difference in it becomes a little bit whiter towards the top, but it's the same man and woman in the corner, the little goat in the bottom left, even the little square, little color patchwork stuff on the side. Everything about that is the same too.
That's crazy. You know what'd be really funny is if your dad got this from Makhmalbaf and didn't tell anyone.
That's what I started thinking about was is this like an insanely popular Gabbeh rug, or is this a rare thing? Do I have a rarity?
Someone's listening to this right now being like, oh my God, we've been looking for this rug for 40 years.
Yeah. So I do like I've always actually liked Gabbehs more than Persian carpets, just because I've always felt looking at them, they do genuinely tell this story. Like I always feel like it's like looking at a painting. Whereas if Gabbeh is like looking at a painting, I'd say Persian carpet is almost looking like a collage, not a collage. What's that thing like when you see the
a mosaic?
Yeah, like a mosaic, or like even those like spiral image things that you see, like the
a kaleidoscope.
Kaleidoscope. Persian carpets always remind me of kaleidoscope imagery. They're usually quite symmetrical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the pattern repeats on both sides. Not always, but quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just like the feel of a good Gabbeh under your feet too. Just it's thicker. It just feels. I don't know. You
they do feel really nice.
Walk on a Gabbeh. Yeah.
That's why there's so many shots in the movie of people just like laying on the carpet, being like, "Oh, I can't wait to lay on this Gabbeh."
Yeah, just rubbing your feet against one feels really nice.
Yeah,
and this film is an interesting oddity. Before I even go into plot summary, I also want to add, this feels like the film. It's like, you know, when you see a film and it's based on the best-selling novel or based on the award-winning play. This feels like a play that, like, the tagline could have been like, based on the best-selling carpet. Like the film is like almost like an adaptation of a rug.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll get more into why I felt that way, but it's just interesting how it's all thematically, emotionally tied to this carpet. And there's the title for you is Gabbeh, and it's literally referencing this carpet. I'm going to go to the plot summary so I can get your head into getting your sense of your thoughts.
Right.
In this Iranian romantic fantasy, an elderly married couple head to the river to wash their Gabbeh, a traditional Persian carpet with a colorful illustration of a young woman woven into it. Suddenly, the figure in the design springs miraculously to life, declares herself to be called Gabbeh, and then spins a story about her history, her family, and the man she loved but was forbidden to marry. It has a 90% Rotten Tomato score and a 79% audience score. So I ask you, Farhan June, what did you think of Gabbeh?
I thought the film was visually striking, like right off the bat. And that was a feeling I had consistently from beginning to end. Like the visuals in this movie were beautiful to the point where like, I don't know how they were able to get the colors the way that they could. The premise I think is really interesting as well. Like the setup for it, the story with Gabbeh and the suitor, I guess, and her story with the family. I thought that was all really great. Overall, I think the dialogue in the film, while it was very poetic, I found it to be often superfluous.
Can you expand on what do you mean on the nose in what sense?
Like it's the flowery speech was sometimes pushed to such an extent that it felt like I could hear the writer tapping at a keyboard. Like it made me very self-aware of the fact that I was watching a movie and that like someone wrote this, if that makes sense. And like, and to be honest, a lot of it on its own, if I was to read it in like a poetry book, I would probably be like, oh wow, this is like written really beautifully. But I did find that in the medium of film, I thought some of it was superfluous. But like still overall pretty decent.
I think I largely disagree with you on the dialogue thing, specifically because I don't think the purpose of this film is supposed to make you get lost in the world, to forget you're watching a movie. The first question I have at the top of my our reaction notes is this the most poetic film we've covered so far? And that's a genuine question I throw to you. Because I think it might be.
I think it's trying to be, and I think that's part of what's bothering me.
One of the things I realized halfway through is this film is so poetic.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm okay with things being left unspoken or unmentioned or unended. And my counter response to that would be that it's to pick apart the writing of this film, which is obviously also not at the forefront of what's great about the movie, but to pick apart the writing of this movie or even the structure or the tone or the character development would be to do that to a poem. It would be like taking T.S. Eliot, a work of T.S. Eliot's, and saying like, well, I didn't really understand why J. Alfred Prufrock doesn't have all his lost moment in his play, or why doesn't The Wastelands have better story world development? I think this film is so literally trying to be a visual poem, like a cinematic poem, that it's not in Makhmalbaf's interest to tell a story in the standard definition of what a cinematic film might be.
What bothers me isn't that it has flowery speech or that it's poetic. What bothers me is that it feels disingenuous in the way that it's written to be poetic. Like, it almost feels like he's trying to write poetry. Whereas if you compare this to a film like The Wind Will Carry Us, I think that The Wind Will Carry Us has a ton of flowery speech as well. But that stuff to me feels more authentic. And I don't mean the premise or the stories or the characters. Like, look, I buy all that. I'm in. It's just some of the dialogue would often, and this happened often enough in the film that I was like, oh, this is written to sound like poetry. And it's funny because there's a lot of movies that I like when they do that. Like, you know me, I love Terrence Malick. And Terrence Malick does that constantly. Mm-hmm. The difference for me is that when Terrence Malick does it, I kind of buy it a little more as like, oh, this is sincere poetry. Whereas when Makhmalbaf was doing it in this film, a lot of times it felt like someone was trying to write poetry as opposed to, oh, this is poetry. And that could just also come down to like the way that some of those lines are performed.
But is there something, I mean, I know we're at this point now dissecting an opinion of taste, but yeah. Do you think there's something inherently wrong with poetry sounding like poetry?
No.
Like,
not
if
at
I were
all.
to say,
That's not, my issue isn't that it sounds poetic. My issue is that it sounds like someone is trying to write poetry.
And failing?
Maybe. Like, it just feels very insincere sometimes, some of the dialogue.
Well, let me get away from talking about the lines. I think we're doing a major disservice to this film by starting with talking about so much of the lines anyways. The dialogue is so low on the list of things that are important.
Yeah, like I said, I did like it. I did like it. Like, I don't want you to think that like I dislike this movie.
This is a deceivingly simple film, and I actually think there's so much metatextual, deeper analysis stuff that we could be crippled for hours discussing what's in there. My overall feelings is genuinely came to really loving this film, but in the same way that I do love a good poem that I would have to study for in university. And knowing that I finished reading a poem and maybe having done some homework behind the poem, knowing that I'll probably never get to the root cause of what the intentions were or what the deeper meaning is and all this stuff, and just kind of being satisfied with the emotion that I'm left with after kind of witnessing such a beautiful piece of work.
How is that simple?
It's deceptively simple. Because this story is just about a woman talking about her story of this man she loves that she has to keep getting delayed on getting married.
I guess so.
Married. Okay, so for the uninitiated, we start with an old couple who's washing a Gabbeh carpet. And through that process, a woman appears. Her name is Gabbeh. There's some mystical, magical realism behind whether or not this woman is real, whether she exists. Is she the carpet manifested into human form? This is the thing I was going to ask you was, did you notice early on in the film that there's a few times in the shots when she's talking that you see the old couple and she's not, that young woman, Gabbeh, is not in the scene?
Yes.
Great. That's what I was thinking. So the old woman goes over and puts her hand on Gabbeh's shoulder, the young woman.
Yeah, and then in a few of the shots when it reveals, Gabbeh's own hands are on her own shoulders.
Oh, I didn't notice that. But the wide shot reveals that the woman has got her hands up in the air like there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of resting it on like a ghost, for instance.
Yeah, there's also a couple times where the old man is on the ground talking to the rug, and then when it cuts wide, he's standing up talking to his wife.
And so the metaphorical situation here is that this is either the human manifestation of this carpet come to life, or she's the character who has been woven into this carpet, because you see a woman on horseback behind a man and a goat in the corner, and she's like, let me tell you the story about my people. And she is a member of a Qashqai tribe, which is a nomadic tribe in Iran. And she's telling the story of how she had her beloved was this horseman who calls to her from a distance from this howling kind of wolf-like thing, and how she's heartbroken because she can't run off and marry this guy because her father said, you can't do that until your uncle gets married. And then the uncle does get married. And they said, well, now you can't do it until your mother gives birth to the next child. And that happens. And there's this constant delay, and there's this yearning, and there's the temptation, and it's kind of quasi erotic in this poetry and the language that he's using, and all that stuff I can touch on in deeper analysis. What I benefited from was the version of the film that you had uploaded the version of the DVD that we watched together had a DVD commentary by Godfrey Cheshire, which we've brought up countless times on this podcast. He wrote the book In the Time of Kiarostami. He's a film critic who has worked for years and years and has done a deep dive into Iranian cinema in general. I think it's his like favorite cultural cinematic landscape. Covered a lot of Iranian films, and so a lot of what I'm getting from is not just an analysis from Godfrey Cheshire's description, but a lot of it is coming from firsthand accounts that he describes having with Makhmalbaf talking about this film. So I'll share some of the stuff that Makhmalbaf had said about this film in behind the scenes and trivia. But again, it was this idea of I think the film's beautiful, like the cinematography, the visual language of cinema used. This is also, in my opinion, one of the most colorful Iranian films I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, I had the same thought.
I mean, to describe it as beautiful, I don't think does it justice.
Yeah.
There were so many moments in this film you can pause, and I would love to have that paused moment as a painting on my wall.
Yeah. What the cow does for black and white cinema in Iran, this does to color film for me in Iranian cinema.
I also say that this is a film that you could put on like during a party or something, like have it muted while people are socializing and music's playing, and occasionally have people just look up at the film. And at any given moment, someone sees a film, whether it's like a snapshot. There's a really great moment when they first introduce the character Gabbeh. She's dressed all in blue, and she kind of turns to the camera and faces, and the blue carpet is behind her. I'm like, this is a beautiful, beautiful shot from like photography 101. Yeah, it's like beautiful. And you could just have this film on and on mute and sort of just like drink it up in terms of its beauty and cinematography. Yeah. So that I think is the first and foremost thing that we should say about, I think we both agree, our perspectives is most colorful film I think I've seen so far that we've covered in the podcast. In my opinion, probably one of the most poetic films, even more so than The Cow and even more so than The Wind Will Carry Us. I think this is more just genuinely abstract poetry.
Yeah, I think this kind of takes the like mythology of the White Meadows, with the poetry of The Wind Will Carry Us. Yeah,
absolutely. That's a good call. Gabbeh introduces herself to the old folks at the beginning, and they ask what her father's name is, and I only caught this from the subtitled translation. She goes, his name is Weave of Wool. Like literally, even her father is like a wool weaving machine. Like this woman is really just the personification of this carpet brought to life. That's in the subtitles anyways. And then the loose plot from there just kind of expands on, like I had mentioned, the uncle is like a city guy from Tehran who's returned back to his Qashqai tribe to find a woman to marry. The courtship becomes... I love these films where it's like he needs a woman to marry, he's getting up there in age, and then it's like he goes into town and finds a woman he finds beautiful and sits beside her by the water and recites a few lines of poetry, and then says, "You want to get married?" Yeah. It's so charming, and like it just kind of makes sense for like cultural perspective, and especially like if you're looking at like generations before. Yeah. But I just thought like, them's were the days, Farhan? If only it were that easy right now. You just go approach a woman right now, just recite a few lines of poetry. Some poetry and then
it's like what Dr. Octopus says in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you want a girl to fall in love with you, you recite some poetry. But then he goes to Mary Jane and he tries to recite poetry, and she's like, what are you doing? He's like, what is this supposed to be? And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah. This exactly. I think that was a subtle nod to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2.
Definitely.
When Makhmalbaf had this character recite poetry. This film also is, I think, in a large proportion, like talking about the importance of color, and it's a celebration of color and how color could be a political statement. And that was something Godfrey Cheshire had said in the commentary that got me down a rabbit hole of like researching articles. And I will bring that up in deeper analysis. But the long and short of it is essentially this idea that when you look at what the Islamic regime had done to women, and especially forcing a lot of the more religious right, wearing those dark black chadors, right? Head to toe. And it's always black, and it's always dark and drab. And this film, despite the fact that these women's hairs are covered, it's so much color and beauty. Like the clothing they're wearing is gorgeous. Yeah. And Godfrey Cheshire says that, from now on, I'll just call him Godfrey, first name basis. We're pals, whatever. Yeah. He said that Makhmalbaf, everyone kind of knows now, and we talked about it in the backstories, Makhmalbaf did come from a religious background to the point where he did he was siding with the Islamic regime for portion of his life and then had been
he was
arrested.
like straight up a quote unquote like Islamist in his youth.
Yes,
like he like stabbed some cop because for like the sake of like God and whatever and all this stuff, and went to jail for it.
Yeah. And that sucks. Like that does genuinely truly suck. But what came from that was also a slow conversion in his life. And I don't know if it was a slow conversion, but he did start kind of recognizing that there was an error in that way of thinking. And a lot of his films after his arrest were sort of trying to poke holes and maybe to a certain degree even reaching out to like-minded people like him, saying that this doesn't have to be this way. Yeah. To his credit, because, you know, change is hard for people in their lives, especially when you get older. And, you know, you can criticize him for having that perspective, but also there's got to be some kind of like acknowledgement of this guy did really look back on those decisions of his life and said, yeah, that was probably not right. But all this to say is, my good friend Godfrey would say that during the screening of this film at a film festival, he'd run into Makhmalbaf, and Makhmalbaf would often talk about Godfrey Cheshire's clothing. And why are you always wearing dark colors? You're always wearing grays and blacks. And Godfrey said that he liked it that way. He just liked dark colors.
That's funny.
And Makhmalbaf's like, you should wear more colors. Like colors bring out life. And like, so like Makhmalbaf genuinely had this affinity for colors. And I think when you look at like the extreme right, the fascist right of the Islamic regime, that isn't one typically known to be siding with colors. You know, it's like very dark. It's black. It's monotone. It's rigid. And it's like almost an attack on the visual senses. And this is a celebration of that. This is a celebration of the opposite view of that, rather. So
the cyclist wasn't very colorful, right? No.
But I think you know, it's not something that he had to make his like standard style of every film. I think this was his this was his color film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a trilogy of his films that you can get from Amazon that includes this one, The Gardener and the Silence. And it's called Mohsen Makhmalbaf's The Poetic Trilogy.
Okay, is that a Criterion?
No, it's Arrow, and it's a Blu-ray, but it's only region B.
Okay.
So I'm considering ordering it and then finding a way to converting it. Yeah.
One thing also I really love that Godfrey mentioned in the commentary was this film being poetic and all the characters are in love with poetry and they recite poetry to one another.
Yeah.
And he said one thing that I'm never going to forget. He goes, poetry is to Iranians, like it's as important to Iranians and their culture as the opera is to Italians.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like, not only is it very true, but it's a fascinating way to look at how much it means to us. Because of course poetry means a lot to every culture, but Iranian culture does have this certain intimacy with poetry that you don't.
Well, even down to like Gabbeh Yalda, right? Like we like tell each other's fortunes in a lot of ways using poetry.
Yeah.
Or like our language, we all know was preserved because of this big epic poem called Shahnameh.
Mm-hmm. Again, this film also, it's a lot of visual imagery that is, you know, playing back to what's happening in Gabbeh, the woman's life.
Mm-hmm.
I found this really interesting idea of like a frame narrative happening where she's telling them the story and they were kind of seeing these things happen, but then it'll cut to the old people reacting to it as if they're seeing it also happen in real time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like somebody might recite a line and then the old man will react to that line as if he was there witnessing it.
Yeah.
It actually has, to use a non-Iranian film, the Princess Bride effect. Have you ever seen the movie Princess Bride?
Yeah.
It's like when Fred Savage as the little boy is being told the story.
Yeah. I know
and
exactly.
And as they're telling the story, it's like, and then like the guy came and the monster showed up, and it cuts like, wait, the monster showed up, and it cuts this film does that essentially with Gabbeh telling her story.
Yeah. Or for the other millennial audience out there, a lot like the show Wishbone, where it's a
Wishbone. I don't remember Wishbone doing that a lot. I love that dog.
I'm pretty sure the like beginnings and ends of it would like start to talk about it, and then once in a while you'd get a cutaway to the dog in like the living room or whatever.
But this idea of that, like sometimes there'd be a scene happening in this whatever flashback or however you want to see it, and it might just cut to like the facial reaction of all three of them, Gabbeh and the two elderly people, as if they're just reacting to the moment happening, as if they're right there. They might not even have dialogue, but it's this really interesting like story within a film based on the carpet.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So this is a behind the scenes trivia I'm telling you early, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Free early edition. Makhmalbaf couldn't get the funding to make this film from the Islamic regime. They didn't like. They were. I guess they were kind of turning on him, and they kind of noticed that his films were a little bit more critical of the regime, and so they were kind of starting to cut off his access to getting funding for this film.
Yeah,
he got the funding for this film approved by telling them, and meaning to do so properly, is that he wants to do a documentary about the Qashqai tribe and their relationship to weaving these Gabbeh carpets. So he essentially told the funding bodies, the Islamic regime, that I want to make a documentary about Gabbeh carpets. That's my intention. That's what I'm going to make. He got the blessing and the green light to make that film, and this is that film. So a lot of the times, it's totally playing an echo to Farooq Farrokhzad and The House is Black. Of like Farooq Farrokhzad using this footage of these children to make an artistic statement about the state of health and wellness and whatever, and the way the youth are being treated and ignored. And this is exactly that 30 years later.
Yeah, as you were mentioning that, I was thinking that too. So all the footage you're seeing, these aren't actors. These are not these tribes. Nobody hears an act. This is actual documentary footage of this tribe making. Well, the tribe stuff.
The tribal stuff. Yeah, but I don't even think, I don't know if the three are the main three.
I think they are, because one of them is definitely an actor. Like the woman who plays Gabbeh has been in a bunch of other movies.
Yeah, but the tribal stuff of showing the weaving of the carpets.
Yeah,
there's the scenes, and this is what.
Or even like the goat that was born, like the birthing of the goat.
Yeah, that goat was not an actor.
Yeah, definitely not an actor.
I love seeing how they kind of show you pick the purple flowers, then they boil the purple flowers in the water and essentially like shake it up to make it into a dye, and that becomes a blue dye that they're now using as the blue dye for the thread. Like the whole process of making a carpet is systematically shown throughout the film. All the steps that take place. And it was really interesting to see. And that stuff was them actually making the carpet. Like those parts of the film are really a documentary on Gabbeh. Yeah. So this is what this is him delivering on the promise of what he made. And around that, he was like, well, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a writer, I'm a poet. Let me also like bookend this true documentary of this Gabbeh making process with some sort of loose narrative of a story within a story about this woman. So he was taking this poetic literary license to tell what is essentially a nonfiction film. Yeah. Which is great. I mean, I think that's wonderful.
Do you think he got in trouble for it when they like saw the final version of the film?
I don't think so. Whatever subtle references and small digs he's doing at the Islamic regime, he's doing it subtly enough that those idiots up at the high tower didn't catch on to it. I don't think
this is also, I think, early enough in his career that like I think they still hadn't caught on to the fact that like he flipped on them.
Yeah.
I mean, we personally know people who to this day are like, yo, screw Makhmalbaf, he's a scumbag, he's like a regime, whatever, this and that. Where like, if you look at the last like, I don't know, like 20 years worth of his like movies and comments, it's pretty clear what side of the fence he's on.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen his last 20 years of films. And to be honest, like
I just mean like in terms of like comments that he's made or his track record or his more recent films, like there's nothing to suggest that this guy is like a regime shill at this point.
You're back on the case, Makhmalbaf. We haven't done a Makhmalbaf reference yet.
Yeah, I know. I've been waiting for it.
Like I had mentioned in one of the previous podcasts, in case you haven't heard other Makhmalbaf podcasts. Yeah, Makhmalbaf. This is my blind spot in Iranian cinema. I think like any film I've ever seen has been for this podcast. So I've only seen like the handful of films of his we've done for this pod. Yeah. I'm not that familiar with his work as well, as much, aside from what I'm learning. But like subtle references of like the poetic language too is there's a woman at one point, like Gabbeh's mom goes into labor. Do you remember she has to like walk away and go into labor when they're traveling? The nomadic tribe, they're traveling and she goes into labor.
I like the visual of the egg dropping out of the chicken.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's like, you can't show a woman going into labor in this film, but instead they show a chicken and it plops out an egg and the kid catches the egg. Yeah. You can't show once the baby's born, you see like a couple women like taking turns holding the baby, and then one woman goes off to breastfeed, but you just see her go off, and then it cuts to a baby goat. This is actually before that goat is born. There's another baby born. But that baby goat is breastfeeding from the mother goat. And it's like, Makhmalbaf, this is like what Godfrey Cheshire says is it could be a potential subtle dig. Is like, oh, we're allowed to show the goat breastfeeding. We can't show humans, God forbid, breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Or we can show the goat giving birth in graphic detail. Like you see a real goat give birth. Covered
like
in
the
blood
placenta,
and everything comes out. And it's like, this we're allowed to show? Like, you're okay with this. But God forbid we show a mother breastfeeding a child. Yeah. The other thing that's really interesting, again, jumping ahead just because we're talking about it, when the woman walks away to give birth, that's Makhmalbaf in women's clothing, essentially, wearing the outfit.
That's
because
funny.
no woman, a member of that tribe, was willing to even pretend to go into labor because they're like, it's not right, it's not proper, like we don't want to be seen that way. So after he asked a couple of women, he decided just to put on the clothing himself. That's why that woman's always like, it's to the back of her, and she's covered. And that's Makhmalbaf playing that woman, essentially like holding onto the tree and going into labor.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. Like towards the end of the movie, a couple times we get references to like the old man pretending to like send his wife away. And then like talking to Gabbeh, but like either as the woman or as the rug, being like, "Oh, let's run away together," all this stuff, and she's like, "Oh, I want to, but I can't because of my uncle." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, you're lying to me. You don't actually love me." And also like the way that this guy speaks, this old man, he's like wailing all the time. And we're seeing
he has a bit of a physical stutter to his speaking. Too,
yeah. And whenever we see the suitor coming around for Gabbeh on the horse at the top of the hill, he howls to her like a wolf to let her know that he's near and waiting for her.
Which is sexual, by the way.
It is?
Totally, howling like a wolf is like, I guess there's always wolf.
Maybe. I mean, the way that I caught it was just that he's wailing, he's crying is what I got from it.
True.
And to me, it was very similar to the Sufi analogy the Sufi allegory of the nightingale and the rose, the nightingale that sings for the rose, or in this case, the wolf that's wailing for her. But then towards the end of the movie, there's a bit of a reveal, I think, that the old man is the suitor, and he's an old man now, and the old woman is actually Gabbeh as an old woman. And so this whole movie, they've been like reminiscing their youth together.
Farhan?
Yes.
I 110% agree with you. That's exactly what I thought as well.
Yeah. That's why I had to go back and rewatch the last 10 minutes. Because I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, no, I must have like misunderstood it. And then I went back and I rewatched it and I was like, oh, no, I got it right.
It's interesting because I think, and this might frustrate you, but I think conclusively, there's never enough there for that to be like 100% determined that's what he's doing. I think he's doing that thing that sometimes irritates you that Iranian filmmakers do, is like, I'm telling you a poem, I'm leaving it to the audience to decide, or I'm leaving you just enough to come up with your own interpretation, because you could say that the Gabbeh woman never existed, that this is the manifestation of the carpet coming to life. I think all of these things are real, especially including that note that I made that this is them. It's like, okay, here's another modern millennial movie. It's like The Notebook. Do you remember spoilers for that? When Ryan Gosling is telling, they're an elderly couple, and I think the woman has dementia and has forgotten her past.
Yeah.
And the reason I think you're right about this is that the old man keeps reciting a lot of the lines that the man on the horse, howling, says, like, why don't you come to me? How come you're not coming to me?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for you. And then there's a few lines that cuts the old man saying that too. The other thing is there's a mirror shot. When the first time you see Gabbeh, she turns to look at the camera and it's like a photograph. And there's the blue carpet behind him. And then at the end of the film, the woman who's been wearing blue as well the entire time turns in front of the carpet too. And those two shots mirror each other, like bookending the film. It also ends with like, she finally decides to run away with the man. And her father, who's livid about this, goes to like kill them, like chase them down and shoot them. And then you hear a gunshot. And then everyone thinks that they've both been killed. But then the woman reveals, he didn't. He just fired a gun so the rest of my daughters and sisters would be scared to leave. Yeah. Just to like as a warning, and they let us go. And as you kind of it shows the old couple again. It's like, this is probably them reflecting on how they had fallen in love. So I kind of agree with that interpretation a lot.
It's funny that you mentioned that this is like, you're like, oh, this is like one of those things that you don't like about Iranian movies. Every time it comes up, those like more ambiguous things or those more open-ended things, I always mention that there's a way to do it right. And usually my issue has to do with like some of those filmmakers I think don't fundamentally understand the way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the way you do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like having those like more open-ended endings, I think this is how you do it. Because the thing that you leave open-ended shouldn't be your character's growth or your character decisions. I still need to see the character make a decision or at least know that they've made a decision. But ending a movie where the character is just like hasn't done anything, I'm like, you wasted my time. Whereas like this movie, I think, still gives me a complete film. It still has like really beautiful imagery. It still tells us a lot about these characters, where they were, where they are now, how this relates back to who they were and how they became who they are now. Overall, I was like pretty content with that.
Yeah,
ending.
but I mean, everything you're just saying is also just your interpretation. Like that is not so solidified that it's for sure what happened. Is what I'm saying.
And that's fine, and I'm fine with that.
Right. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Where it's
we should
like,
have a quote from Farhan on the cover of The Salesman, or not The Salesman, A Separation, saying, "A waste of my time" by Farhan Muradi.
Did I still give that movie like an A-?
I don't know.
I just said the ending was like, all right, you're clearly scared to say something.
The final line of this film is Gabbeh telling that my father didn't kill me. We did run off together, but he did that gunshot as a warning to my sisters and his other daughters to not run away. And the final line is, since then, no one has heard the canary song by a spring. And to me, I think that's another subtle jab at the role of women in Iran during this current regime.
Yeah.
Because the man who refuses to let this woman run off with her love and be free is dominating over the rest of the siblings and daughters by fear.
Yeah.
Fires a gunshot so that it's like the rest of the daughters who aren't going to run away with this horseman or fall in love, they stay put.
Yeah. She even says at one point in the movie, she says, "Old man, let the bird go."
Yeah.
The canary.
And I think this is like, these are the little subtle ways that Makhmalbaf is criticizing IRGC in very subtle ways, not overt at all.
Yeah.
But the use of color, little lines of poetry referencing to women as the canaries who are being imprisoned. Like all of this stuff exists, and it's just enough that he could deny the metaphor analogy if needed to be. But anyone with like a slight sense of artistic literacy might be like, these are undeniable themes. There's a whole thing about the uncle that we haven't touched on at all before, behind the scenes in trivia. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on the uncle, because he's sort of the second or third main character of the film. And I quite liked him. But basically, Gabbeh says that her uncle, who is a Tehran boy, but Tehran man, comes from the city. So he's like the urban character who's come to the rural. He's returned to his tribe and looking for a marriage. And he is actually quite endorsing and like loving of Gabbeh. Like he wants her to follow her heart.
Yeah.
It's the father who doesn't want.
Yeah.
The scene with him teaching the class is one of the best scenes I've seen in an Iranian film.
Oh, I love that scene.
Since the day we started podcasting.
Yeah.
I had not seen that film. Okay, so basically when the uncle first shows up in town, he goes straight to a tent, which is essentially a school for these kids. And there's a teacher explaining. And then he introduces himself. He's like, "Oh, what are we learning? What are we studying?" And the uncle sort of takes over as the teacher. But the camera shifts focus that we are the students, because he's talking directly to us, and we no longer see the students in the shot. And he starts pulling on, what is this color? And he pulls at a field of red flowers, and the kids say, "What is the color?" They said it's not Hermes, it's yeah, exactly. And he pulls it, and it's just this magic realism thing of like he reaches his hand into the emptiness.
Yeah.
And then the flowers show up, and he does the same thing with the yellow wheat or the yellow flowers. And he puts his hand up, and even the shots don't make sense. Like his hand shouldn't be that close to the sky or these flowers, but it's just beautiful. Like I can't describe how simple it is and so transcending it is.
Yeah.
And Godfrey Cheshire said, this is the type of thing that if done in any other film would have been like, huge production budget, special effects, all of this, like they would have put money into making it. And it's like this Makhmalbaf does so simply. Just reach your hand out over these like yellow flowers and pull it back, and on the shot he has flowers.
Yeah.
And I thought it was beautiful. Like genuinely one of the most awe-inspiring scenes. I mean, this film is worth watching for this scene alone. But if you don't have the patience for it, like, see if you can find the uncle school teacher scene from Gabbeh on YouTube. Like, it's beautiful.
That scene almost feels like it could be like a short film on its own.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it like really was jaw dropping, and to have this uncle kind of become this teacher to the audience who's watching this film.
Yeah,
because then you hear the kids answering like, "What color is this?" It's like, "Oh, Abby," and like you hear the kids, but you never see the kids again after. You just hear their voices. Like he's teaching us. Again, going back to this idea of like the importance of color, and then the uncle does get married, and he's getting ready for his wedding. There's like a beautiful dance scene. Do you remember when they're getting ready for the wedding? He starts like dancing with it. And it's like so cute and sweet. I want to go to behind the scenes in trivia. Cool. If I have your blessing. Behind the scenes in trivia, Gabbeh's, one of the things that stands out about them as carpets is they are always handmade, whereas Persian carpets can be handmade, but they can also be industrial. Persian carpets can be made by factories. What does that mean?
We don't talk about those ones.
Which ones?
The factory made ones.
Yeah, but whereas Gabbeh's are always handmade.
I don't know if I believe that. What's your source on that?
Makhmalbaf told Godfrey Cheshire.
I mean, now I bet you could make them in factories with machines. Like now,
you can make anything in factories.
Yeah, even dreams.
Makhmalbaf told Godfrey that Persian carpets to Gabbeh's are what Hollywood movies are to independent films. From his perspective.
The other way around. Gabbeh's are the Persian carpets, but independent films are the Hollywood.
Persian carpets are Hollywood movies, and Gabbeh's are independent films.
Yeah.
That's how he saw it in his perspective. The tribes that he films, specifically the Qashqai tribe that he filmed in this, are actually at the time of when he started filming this in 95, 96, they had actually started now being nomadic using pickup trucks. And Makhmalbaf didn't want them using the pickup trucks for the purpose of the film. So again, it's that Kiarostami kind of like, we're good at documentary footage, but we're going to tweak it a bit. He asked them for these scenes, can you travel via horseback? And he's going to make sure not to include any of the shots of the pickup trucks because he didn't want that for the aesthetic of the film.
You know what that reminds me of? When Kiarostami gets the
I know what you're about
the villagers to dress like they're nomadic.
Yeah, that's exactly
or like they're not nomadic, but like old school or whatever. And then
they were upset about it.
Yeah, and then in the third Coker film, he reveals that like they're like, why would I wear this?
Yeah.
This is what old people wear. No one wears this.
Honestly, like the making of this film could have made a great sequel to Gabbeh in the same way that Through the Olive Trees is a kind of sequel to Life and Nothing More.
Yeah, I had the same thought. I was like, I want to see the making of for this film.
So when the uncle is dancing in preparation of his wedding, he's standing in front of an archaeological site. Did you catch that?
Yes.
It's this beautiful thing. It kind of has Persepolis looks to it. So
yeah.
So that's Naqsh Rostam.
Yeah.
And in it is the burial ground of 4 great or historical or great Persian kings.
Mm-hmm.
And those 4, do you know the 4? Can you name them? Off the top of your head, which 4 would you say?
Dariush.
Yes.
Khashayar.
Is that Xerxes?
Khashayar is, Xerxes.
Yes.
Is the other one Shapur or Ardashir?
It's it's Darius the Great.
Yeah.
Xerxes. Yeah. Artaxerxes.
Okay.
And Darius the Second.
Okay.
Those are the 4. Now, the interesting thing about this is that's a very deliberate and specific choice that Makhmalbaf had made.
Yeah.
And Godfrey Cheshire talks about why that choice, and there's 2 potential ways. One, it's a real location that he was actually shooting in and saw it behind there and used that. The second is it's another example of that pre-Islamic, the jab against them, because this is a pre-Islamic monument. And according to Mr. Cheshire, also historical relevancy, is that in the early 80s, there was a lot of discussion by the Islamic regime of which one of these monuments to destroy. Like they wanted to go on a crusade of destroying a lot of the pre-Islamic monuments in Iranian history.
Right.
And cooler heads have prevailed eventually, and they decided to preserve them. Unlike where you see like the Taliban destroying a lot of old Afghan history.
Yeah.
The inclusion of this monument, Naqsh Rostam, is sort of also like just another thing of like, Persians are still here, man. We exist. You couldn't get rid of us. And with every decision a director makes, there always has to be something. I mean, there's some reason they made that choice. And again, this could be argued this is another kind of jab. A subtle FU, if you will.
By the way, the reason I thought Shapur or Ardashir were there too, because they're from the Sasanian dynasty. There's right to the left of it, and you might be able to see it in the film because it's like right next to the Naqsh Rostam, is there's a big carving of Shapur defeating the Roman Emperor.
And that's why you thought it was Shopper. Maybe
Roman Emperor Valerian.
Maybe there's more than 4.
I mean, he might also be in there. I don't know, but
Yeah.
but like, yeah, right. Like it's like right to the left of it. Like they're both carved into the side
right
of the
to the
same
left
thing.
of it.
Yes, exactly.
After this film, Gabbeh carpets rise in popularity throughout Iran.
That makes sense.
Maybe in the markets and marketplace and whatever.
Yeah.
That's sort of it, because other stuff I had mentioned in the preamble. Critical reactions. This was Iran's submission for the 70th Academy Awards, although I don't think he got nominated. No, it wasn't nominated. So that actually answers your question about whether or not, I mean, the IRGC was even aware of the subtle digs because they chose this film.
No, I was asking, my question was more, what was their reaction to him not making it a documentary? Like, were they pissed about that?
No,
but I guess not if this was their submission.
I honestly don't even think they noticed. At Cannes, this was nominated for Ansar Gad in 1996. It won and was nominated in multiple awards. Again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but Fajr, Tokyo, National Society of Film Critics, Sitges, Catalonian. It just did really well. Robert Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, saying Gabbeh is a simple film. There is hardly more to say about it than I have said. Yet it remains in the memory in a way that more thickly plotted films do not. It teaches a lesson that there can be more to a movie than episodes and events. That a film can stand back from the micromanagement of small bits of time and show us the sweep of a life and the long, slow seasons of a heart. Movies such as this work like meditation or music to nudge us towards the important.
It was also the first Makhmalbaf he had ever seen. And it was the only one that he had seen when he wrote that review.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I disagree with that. Like that first thing that he says there of like, Gabbeh is a simple film. I guess it's simple in the like initial premise, but then he like literally goes on to like talk about how it's not a simple film.
I mean, that's what I did. I said, I think this is a deceptively simple film. The plot is,
Did you think that before you read the
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, not much happens in the way of plot. It's not a complicated...
in the way of plot, I guess. But it's like densely packed with like...
Yeah, it's a very deep...
allegory, I would say.
Kevin Thomas, Los Angeles Times, says, Gabbeh is a work of shimmering beauty that celebrates the mystical power of art and passion in the midst of the kind of vast expanses of natural grandeur most often seen nowadays on an IMAX screen.
Not an IMAX screen, though. Those are different.
Deeper analysis. You want to go first, FJ?
Well, the first one I had wrote down, we already talked about, but it was the thing of like the egg being laid and falling into her hand when you find out that the mom's going into labor. I thought it was a really brilliant way to show that to the audience.
Yep.
That was that first one that I had.
Yeah.
You wrote that down too, obviously. Yeah.
Yep.
There's a lot of repeated visuals in the film. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. I mean, I think in the same way that it's like poetry, it rhymes. There's a lot of that use, but explain to me. Go ahead.
Like, yeah, I was going along the lines of like poetry, how in poetry, you'll often get a lot of repetition in words and in lines. Like even some of the poems that are recited throughout the film, you get a lot of repetition in those lines. In fact, there are a couple poems in the film that come up a few times. And so having that repeated imagery, I think is like the visual version of that. Again, I brought up Terrence Malick before. This is something that Malick does a lot. I think that this is what happens when a poet tries to make a movie is you'll get stuff like this. Whereas in a lot of Hollywood films, something that happens quite a bit is they'll be like, oh, don't use the same shots. Like even if you're calling back to the same moment in a film, oftentimes they'll grab like a different take or another part of the take because they're like, oh, it'll like subconsciously make the film feel more cheap or whatever it is. But this movie will like unapologetically like multiple times take the exact same shots, the exact same takes that were used previously and repurpose them into like new meaning and new intention.
Again, like poetry.
Like poetry, it rhymes.
I have also mentioned a lot of the stuff that we were going to say about the deeper analysis, but I again think I just wrote that like colors are political in this film, and it's not just an aesthetic way of displaying.
Yeah.
The stuff about the women who wear chadors that have to be all black, void of color. this idea, there's a whole running poetic line where like people start chanting. They say, love is color. Life is color. Man is color. Woman is color. The earth is color. The sky. And they kind of repeat it. And I think it's like a celebration of color in this sort of way of beauty and life that exists in the world, and how it's like a tool in his weaponry and his armory for like combating fascism.
Well, I like the response to that too, where it comes like the dialogue comes back, and on top of that, it's like love is pain, man is pain. Yeah, like, it was a cool response, like call and response.
Yeah, there's like I was mentioning the Furuk Farrokhzad thing of like the house is black. Is that juxtaposition of what is on the surface level deemed unattractive lepers, who've been disfigured, talking about beauty and acceptance.
Yeah.
And it's like they're talking about the things that are beautiful in this world, and you're seeing it juxtaposed against people that are in horrible conditions. And this is not people in horrible conditions, but this is the idea of like, oh, I'm doing a documentary just on carpets. Please allow me to IRGC to make this film, when everything about it's so much about color and beauty and the world, and like women who are held, their circumstances being dictated by men and all this stuff. And it's like this trapdoor juxtaposition of so much beauty in the world, and yet your main character is like imprisoned but cannot chase her dreams. It's very interesting. Best scene.
Do you want me I feel like we have the same one.
Teacher scene.
Yeah, 100%. It's such a great like self-contained scene.
If I were to do like a top 10, we should do this one time for an episode. Yeah. Our top 5 favorite scenes of the last 2-3 years doing Simmer X. This would be up there for me in top 3. I think it's one of those scenes that I'm like, I should have thought of that.
The scene is so good.
Yeah, I'm surprised that like other non-Iranian filmmakers haven't considered stealing it and using it for their own film, repurposing it.
That's funny.
Damn, that's poetry. I want to start by saying to pull off a quote and talk about its poetry is a little misguided, because it's like saying, in my opinion, like, again, kind of going back to what you said at the beginning, someone being like, do you like the Mona Lisa? Yeah, I like the Mona Lisa. Yeah, what's your favorite line in that painting?
Right.
Like, what? Well, there's no lyrics in the Mona Lisa. Right. It's like the thing about the Mona Lisa isn't anything lyrical or literary. And I just think that like when trying to find that great line of dialogue, like you might watch a Farhadi film and pull up a line. It's like, oh man, he totally burned her with that line. It was so powerful and moving. But this film is like I'm just going to be forthright with it. My damn, that's poetry is moments of them quoting actual poetry.
Yeah. I figured that would happen.
And so it's like the film is the poetry.
It's funny because there's been times where we've watched movies where they're like quoting poems, and I'll like text you and be like, don't use the actual poems. Yeah. Like in The Wind Will Carry Us, that happened.
Yeah. I will say for me, it's when the uncle is like flirting with the woman that he's going to marry, and they're kind of flirting to each other, and she's enjoying it. She's like, but if you were mad at me, what would you do? He goes, I'll cuddle you and recite poetry. She goes, oh yeah, what will you recite? And he starts reciting the poetry, which is this. Man tishnam ta berava. Man khastam to ta taba. Man piro sal khordo fartut. To no shakofte shakh jawan. He goes, I am thirsty, you are pure water. I am weary, and you are energy. I am tired and old and withered, and you are youth. You are a bud. And then she's like, that's it. We're getting married right now. She like disappears in a cloud of smoke and grabs him by the hand. Yeah. Like, she kisses him or whatever. She doesn't kiss him, but you know. Yeah, that's my favorite.
I had 2. One of them was the one that we mentioned. Yeah. The love is color, man is color, woman is color, child is color, love is pain. And then the other one was from, I think, the same scene as you. After when the guy tells her the poem, she responds with, بالای چشم من هستم، پایین چشم من هستم. تو سنگایم که تو چشم هست من هستم. من اومد از اینجا گذر که گنجشکی هم که تو دستش بود من بودم. من 3 قسمت شده بودم. At the top of that spring is me. At the bottom of that spring is me. The stones in the spring are me. When my beloved dies, I will remain. I was like, pretty solid.
That's right after, yeah. Wait, so yours happens before mine then?
Yeah, mine. Yeah, I guess mine is right before yours. Because I think he says a poem, she says a poem, then he says another poem.
Right. Best performance.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of went through like 3 until I settled on my one. So at first, it was Shaghaye Jodat.
Yeah.
Who plays Gabbeh.
Yeah.
And she has the most grounded performance, so it really does stand out for me.
Yep.
But then I was thinking, well, maybe because of that, maybe it doesn't fit as well because it's so grounded compared to everybody else who's giving these like theatrical performances. So then my mind went to Rogier, I don't know, Moharami, who plays the old woman.
Yep.
And out of the more theatrical performances, hers was definitely the best, and it was classical. She was also very sweet and tender. Ultimately, I ended up settling on Abbas Saya, who plays the uncle.
God. You went on a whole journey with this.
I did.
Is there a fourth person you consider?
No. This is the last one. No. Because he strikes, I think, the best balance between being grounded and being classical. So ultimately, I settled on Abbas Saya, who plays the uncle. How about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I mean, I had Shaghair Jodat and Abbas Saya as my two, and I was like, whichever one you don't pick, I'll pick the other one. But you picked both of them plus a third one in for good measure, so I picked both of them.
Hell yeah!
Festival of Cons. I'll go first. I have a small one. When she finally runs away with the guy, the horseman who's been like after her the whole time, they go away on two horses, and all this time on the carpet, we've been seeing two people on one horse.
Yeah,
and I don't know why that bothered me so much, but it's like you're telling the story of the carpet. And you got it wrong. They
also,
on
multiple times throughout the film, every time he shows up to take her away, he's only got the one horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't explain to you how confounding that is to me.
I bet you part of this was a censorship thing. And I bet you Makhmalbaf was probably just as pissed off about that.
You're right. You can't show two people on one horse. What will they think?
A man and a woman, yeah.
That bothered me so much.
That's fair.
That's my one con. But, oh man, it's a real con.
I already mentioned mine, and it was just that sometimes the dialogue in this was like a little too frou-frou.
Yo, bro, you gotta stop putting your fucking Festival of Cons as the first thing you mention in the film nowadays.
I know, I do it too much. I used to give like one general Festival of Con, like one general thing that I really liked, and then one general like Festival of Con. And then when I got to Festival of Cons, I'd have a whole list. But now I don't really have whole lists of Festival of Cons, I find. I feel like I'm a lot more forgiving now than I used to be.
You're getting older.
So I really mostly just have one.
Double feature lineup. BDB.
I have kind of a cop-out answer.
Mine might not be a cop. Okay.
What's yours?
Let me go first, because mine we've mentioned 3 times today already. It's The Wind Will Carry Us.
Oh, solid.
I think those two films are like poetry and they rhyme. I think
yeah.
They are both done in their respective directors' unique styles.
Yeah.
But The Wind Will Carry Us being from this outsider urban guy who shows up to this small village and is coming with a goal. And there's a sort of element about how the film is more lyrical than it is plot driven. Yeah. This still has that urban. It's the uncle.
Yeah.
I mean, the uncle and the character, it's very similar. These films are parallels and kind of speaking to one another in a way.
Do you remember what we both gave to The Wind Will Carry Us in terms of scores?
No, but I can predict I gave it a high B.
You gave it a B- and I gave it a B. But I think in hindsight,
higher.
I would actually give it a higher grade.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like I might even lean towards giving it like an A- if I was to redo that now.
So yeah, I think Gabbeh is a much more visually striking film though than The Wind Will Carry Us. So what's your film for double feature lineup?
Mine, the reason I say it's a cop-out is it's a film I actually haven't seen. But from what I know about this movie, I feel like it would be a good fit. And I kind of actually really want to go watch this movie now. It's a movie that's been on my list for a long time. It's Tarsem Singh's The Fall. Have you seen it?
Oh, I love The Fall. It's a great movie. It's really good.
Do you think it would be a good comp for this?
Kind of. Yeah, the visuals for sure. The Fall's a wonderful movie, and
it's also like a story within a story, and there's striking visuals, and it also talks a little bit about like this young girl who's like kind of dealing with the like society around her that's like kind of patriarchal. I don't know to what extent, but like enough of what I've caught from it feels like it'd be a really good comp.
How do you know so much about it and yet haven't seen it?
I've been meaning to watch that movie for years. Like since it came out, I was like, I just haven't gotten around to it. Like I remember when the trailer came out before it even came out, I was like, oh my God, I need to see this.
Yeah, the film does totally deliver on the visuals. I remember being slightly disappointed in the overall story at the end.
Yeah.
slightly, but I still think the visuals is like unreal. Like nobody was doing what anyone was doing like that around that time.
Yeah, the 4K Blu-ray is supposed to come out, I think, this year or something.
I also want to mention Akira Kurosawa's Ran, just because of the color used in that film. Ran has so much color that
I was thinking of that too.
And yeah, it does have that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
So those are all great double feature lineups that you can schedule in your local theater. Since all of you guys are clearly doing that after listening to this podcast. Hollywood remake, I say no.
I said no at first, and then I was like,
I could do better.
I'd kind of be into it if like you get some like Iranian filmmaker, like a young Iranian filmmaker, to go like, I almost want to see them like become Terrence Malick's protege and then go remake this film with like a Hollywood budget.
But then why? For what purpose? Like this film's like visually, like it's not lacking anything that it needs a remake.
I don't know, if you were like, here's $20 million, go remake this. If that was my mandate, that's what I would do.
Yeah, fair. Final thoughts and grades. Beep, beep, boop, 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 boop.
What are you giving it?
I'm giving it a B+, and I think that's probably, again, admitting that I probably gave The Wind Will Carry Us a little bit too low of a grade.
Oh, interesting.
I think this film is better visually. The Wind Will Carry Us is better story-wise or whatever, if you could call it screenplay or something. But the visuals are so striking, and that scene alone is worthy of, like, if not a B++. I might even give it a B++. Let's just go B+.
That scene on its own is very freaking good.
It's so good. I want to say also that I like this film a lot more because it's my culture. I found it fascinating that, like, if this was like the exact same film, but it was like it's like an Indian film or like a Sri Lankan film or I don't know, a Hungarian film, whatever. I don't think I would be so connected to it. But because this is my homeland, because we do a podcast about talking about films from a part of the world that we are from but can never go to or cannot go to right now, there's a certain like emotional affinity I feel to these films when I watch them that make me more invested in it. And so giving it a high grade or B+ or B++ or whatever, I wonder if like everything else about this film was the same, but it's like Pakistani film, like would I still feel like that drawn to it? And that's just, I'm just saying that to like for non-Iranian listeners, there's a certain emotional investment and attachment I have to this culture and this history. Like even just watching the Qashqai tribe, like real nomadic tribesmen and tribeswomen walking, I was like, this is cool to me. Like this is really interesting. So it's hard to gauge, it's a film I loved or does it just mean more to me?
Yeah. All right. So B+ from Gabbeh. Wait, I have a question. Would you, so now knowing that you would give Wind Will Carry Us a higher grade, would you put Wind Will Carry Us similar to Gabbeh, or would you put it above Gabbeh or below it?
I put it either the same or just below. I think this. Oh wow! If the film is like a cinematic visual language, this is a visual feast.
Interesting. Okay. I did really like it. I still like Wind Will Carry Us a little more than this. Yeah, I think visually it's striking. I do really like the initial premise of it. Unfortunately, I do think some of that dialogue was sometimes in some scenes a little superfluous, but I have nothing more to add really. But sorry, go ahead.
Don't you think this film deserves like a 4K? Like, this film should actually have all run films have a Criterion 4K.
Yeah. This film, I had that thought watching it. I was like, God damn, this movie needs a 4K.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, I hope it gets one. It's funny because when Makhmalbaf's camp sent us screeners for the film, a lot of those screeners were really poor quality.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, why not send higher quality ones, especially for a movie like this where I feel like a lot of what's so beautiful about this film is the visuals of it.
Yeah.
I would give this as a final grade a B-. But like considering the fact that I gave The Wind Will Carry Us a B, and now in hindsight, I feel like that's at least like an A-. It's possible that in a few months I'll look back on this and be like, you know what, this is better. But overall, that means our Cinema Rex show average is a B.
What lingers most is not plot, but feeling. Gabbeh is one of those rare films that seems to exist less as a narrative and more as a piece of living poetry. Watching it feels almost like watching a Persian carpet being woven in real time, myth slowly weaving into a pattern before our eyes. In many ways, Gabbeh feels less like a film adaptation of a story and more like the film adaptation of a carpet itself. The result is something deceptively simple, yet deeply layered and tapping into tradition. What we are immediately struck with in Gabbeh are the bright blues, vibrant yellows, piercing reds, and serene greens that Makhmalbaf fills the screen with, and it's not hard to read that as a quiet act of defiance. A reminder that Iranian culture, like its carpets, has always been vibrant, expressive, and impossible to reduce to a single color. Thank you, Farhan June, for doing this film with me.
Thank you, Gabbeh.
To all of our listeners, thank you for watching this film with us.
Thank you.
We saw you watching the film. Be sure to like and follow and subscribe at Cinema Rex Podcast on Instagram.
Comment, share with your friends, leave a review.
And to everyone else, be umid didar.
Bye. Music for Cinema Rex was written and performed by Sohail Sadinejad.